need to establish that they don't even understand the situation well, which is my view, right? It's like a futile conversation. Well, duh. That's my point. Anyway.
Okay, well, it is 9 o'clock. If you want to hang and we can talk, we can talk. But I have to go live now because, well...
You go live, mate.
There we go. And I should be live now. Now, let me know if you can hear me or not, because obviously it should all work. But knowing my luck, I haven't been live for 3 weeks, so it might not. And the funny thing is that there's no one in the chat right now, so let's pretend that everything is well and we just keep going on till someone tells us things aren't going well. Now, some of you may have noticed that I haven't been here for a few weeks. I am sorry for that, but real life did take the better of it. And yeah, that's how it is sometimes. It's not all bad news though, because I started a new job, or at least I'm working at a new place that, if all goes well, it will become my new job. At the moment, I'm there like, how do you call it? Well, it's a test drive, really, innit? I mean, they want to know if I can do it, and there you have it. It's a good job. It takes a lot of time. It keeps me running around from places to places. Basically, it's my old job, but now I'm not working in one location. I'm working all over the place. And I have been live for a while. Well, that's weird, John. I shouldn't have been. I am sorry about that. And hi there, Toxic. Yes, I am, well, good, more or less. As the title says, life goes on. And so do we. Hi there, Ludicrous. I like to thank you all for joining me here. Now, there is something I did want to talk, other than me not being here for a while and all that. The world is going into a tailspin, they say. It's not true, the world isn't going into a tailspin. But there are some interesting topics that we should address. Or at least I think we should address, because there is something happening in the Western world that scares me, I guess. No, not I guess. It scares me, it really does. See, everyone knows about the Yellow Vest protests in France, or at least I think everyone should know, because it's been going on for, well, a few years already. But we don't talk about it. And everyone knows about the riots that were happening in the last period of time in America, when Donald Trump was still the president. And all of a sudden, we don't hear about it in America anymore, because now Biden is president. But there are still things happening there. But it doesn't fit the narrative. And everyone knows how dangerously dangerous Corona is. But it's far less deadly than just about everything we've got. I mean, you can't compare it to a common flu. How dare you? Common flu is far less deadly, except for when it's not. But one of the things it did do, and this is something that we can blame on Corona, or we can say, oh, it's because of the government, this, that, or the other, or we can admit that it's because of bad policies. Corona did kill a lot of old people. Now, it's terrible for everyone that dies, but in the Netherlands alone, the average age of a victim that died with or from Corona, mostly with, let's be honest, is older than the average age of the maximum age. Sorry, the average maximum age of a person. I think in the Netherlands, the male maximum age is 74, and the average age of Corona deaths in the Netherlands is close to 80. Now, there are people who are older than 80. It's an average old age thingy. But it's amazing that more people die without Corona than with. It's amazing that riots become big news when it's politically expedient, I guess, but they go away when it is not. Now, this is not something just happening in America or just happening in Europe, but it is happening. And in the last few weeks in the Netherlands, we've seen new riots because the government, in all their pretended wisdom, thought it'd be wise to bring in a curfew. I've never understood how a virus could tell time, but I don't know, maybe it notices that it's colder or warmer. So, oh, wait a second. Go away, Clyde bot. I don't know why you are here. Anywho. What was I going on about? Oh yeah, there we were. I'm sorry guys, Discord killed me a little bit. Killed the thought line. But I mean, if we look, for example, in the Netherlands, we've seen riots and people standing up against the lockdown that's been forced upon them. Now, it's mostly being done by young people. Hi there, Michael Keller. And it's true, or at least it's partially true, that the biggest group of these young kids that are doing these violent acts of rioting are not, how do you call them? Words are hard for me again, I'm sorry. They're not your typical Dutch people. Most of them are import. But the thing is, where I agree that it's easy to say, look at all these people that come to live in our country and now make a mess of it, it's also unfair or unreasonable or indeed wrong. It's the young boy coefficient. I mean, there are too many young boys that don't seem to have a straight, fair look into the world. They are stuck in a position and they aren't getting chances. So what happens? Well, they fight back because they have to do something, or at least they feel they have to do something. By the way, hi there, Michael Keller, and hi there, Leprechaun. I think I said hi to everyone. Hi there, Toxic, and hi there, John. Why is he greeting me after mentioning dumb people? Oh, come on, Michael. I have to greet everyone. And I don't know. Did I mention dumb people? Can't remember that. Ah, it must be me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. No, but there's this thing going on in society. And this is something that's been going on in France for quite a while. We are seeing slight turns of this in America. And now we're seeing it in other countries like the Netherlands, Germany, Austria, where younger people are standing up and fighting back. Now, some of this fighting back is done from political opinions. Oh, yeah, no, we agree with that political power, therefore we fight against it. But a lot of it is going on by people who aren't politically affiliated. I mean, if we look at the Yellow Vest in France, they're still not politically affiliated. If we look at the riots in the Netherlands, these kids that are doing the rioting, which is never a good thing, but these kids are not politically affiliated. They do, however, recognize that they're in a dead-end street, so to speak. Oh, right, young people. Well, that could be it. Could be that he misheard me. That's fair. So what happens when you have a lot of young people that do not see a future ahead of them, that do not feel that there is something they can achieve in their current society? Well, they riot. Well, rioting is the wrong word, but they stand up, they speak out, they revolt against what the norm seems to be. This is what happened not too long ago when we had the Arab Spring in the Middle East. It were the young people standing up against certain issues, and they had enough of their governments, their societies, being forced in a certain direction. This is true for France. I mean, it's easy to say that the Yellow Vests are only rioting because the fuel prices are too high, which, yeah, if you look at it from a very layman sort of way, you may perhaps be correct. But there is far more to it. One of the things people probably never mention is that when you look at the Yellow Vest riots in France, they are very ethnically diverse. It's not one group speaking out over the problems. Well, protest, yes, thank you. Protest is a better word, Michael. It's not just one group that seems to stand up. It's not white supremacists that speak out against their overlords. No. It's people standing up. This is what's happening in France with the yellow vests. This is what's happening in the Netherlands. This is what's happening in America. I mean, I'm not talking about Black Lives Matter and Antifa, because these guys are controlled opposition. How do we know it's controlled opposition? Because they are almost instantly silent the moment their political candidate seemed to have won. Whereas the people that are truly offended, the people that are truly affected by what's going on, still make themselves heard, which is what happens in France, the Netherlands. And yes, this is still happening in America too, because there are still riots from Antifa. There are still riots from Black Lives Matter. But the media doesn't show it to us because it's no longer expedient. It doesn't fit a purpose. And funny enough, this is not about left, right, or yada 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 blah blah blah. This is about what we as a people need to try to do. We need to try to recognize that whether we agree with all the things the yellow vests in France are standing for, or all the things Black Lives Matter stand for, or all the lies Antifa try to spread, we need to recognize that there are some points where we may agree. For example, I think Black Lives Matter is the biggest lie at the moment. I mean, it's even bigger than Antifa. But at the same time, I agree with them that there is a problem with police brutality when there is a problem with police brutality. However, I do not agree that all police interaction is basically police brutality. But sometimes they have a point. Now, they don't just have that point with black people, because unfortunately this happens with everyone in America. Not just in America, by the way. Police brutality happens everywhere in the world. But it's not the norm. Hell, it's too small a fraction to even be an exception. It's a blip. But it does happen. I mean, we can address it. We can mention it. But it shouldn't be our mainstay to talk about. Because if it's all we keep talking about, well, we're just helping the polarization move along. And I think that whomever is in favor of pushing this idea of polarizing us is happy that this is happening. But they're not happy that the yellow vests are still protesting. In France, that is. They're not happy that the yellow vests are identically and politically and ethnically very diverse. There's this old image, and I don't know if I can see it. Let me see if I can find it real fast. Oh, come on. I should have prepared this better, I know, but unfortunately I'm just awake because that's the way it rolls in my house at the moment. Come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. No, of course I can't find it. I am sorry, people. I'll describe it. You probably... In the meantime, I will look for it more. But there is this image where a black person and a white person basically clasp hands together, as in standing up together against whatever is coming. And this is the funny thing, because the left constantly, and I know people don't like me to use the word left, but in this case it's not a derogative, it's more of a descriptive term, not in a negative way, but in... The progressives like to think that we should stand up for black people. And I disagree with that. Not so much because I don't see them as equal to me, But if I need to stand up for someone else, doesn't that inherently imply that we're not equal? Doesn't that inherently imply that they need me? I disagree with that. I don't think they're lesser than me. And I don't think it's just them needing me. I think we all need each other. And this is what, for example, the Yellow Vest protests make so very clear. This is what, what's the name of that group in America? The Proud Boys make so very clear. It's not just white people standing up, it's white and black people standing together whilst standing up. Anyway, let me check the chat for a second. I was listening to the Irish Black Lives Matter march. A person of color went into a shop and started attacking people with a knife. The police were at the scenes for hours, and the event did not end until the aggressor attacked one of the armed officers with his knife and was shot. Well, I'm sorry, but yeah, if you start waving around machetes or knives or whatnot, hey, you know what? I support the police in using lethal force in those situations. Why the hell not? I mean, why should you be stabbed? That's weird. Of course not. As a police officer, you defend yourself. So that's to me not a sign of police brutality. At best, it's a sign of violence. But yeah, violence and brutality are not the same, let's be honest. And how come and I still can't find that bloody... I'm pretty sure I have it somewhere, but yeah, somewhere isn't that useful. But it's amazing how easy it is to forget that either we are a society together or we are not. There is no middle ground in this. There is no saying, oh, well, but that's unfair because you're now saying that those people aren't part of your society. No. What I'm saying is those people choose not to be a part of our society. Now, this is true for every identifiable group out there. If you want to identify people as black versus white, instead of identifying them as Americans or Dutch or English or Irish, then yeah, I'm sorry, you've already chosen to set people aside. Now, in America, quite a time ago, when Black Lives Matter wasn't that big of a deal yet, I've seen plenty of black American who would say, no, I'm not African American. Fuck off with that shit. I've never been to Africa. I haven't had family that's been to Africa. I'm American. If you want to call me black American, well, yeah, sure, black can be a descriptive of me, but I'm American. Period. And this is, for example, the funny thing when we look at the Proud Boys, who has a coloured person now being the first in line of that group. I mean, he's more or less the spokesperson or the leader or whatever you want to call him. He is, how do you call it, Latino, Hispanic? No, he's not. He's American. Well, yeah, okay, he might not be lily white. He might have a slight tan to his skin, but he's still American. So why are these descriptive narratives so important? Well, because it's the only way that the people who want to split us up against each other are able to do so. It's all about divide and conquer. And as soon as we recognize this, and as soon as we say, wait a second, you know what? Yeah, I might not agree with Jack on the corner, but you know what? He's still a person. I will defend his right to be an arsehole. Because he has every right to be an arsehole. And I have every right to call him an arsehole. As soon as we start fighting with each other, there's an issue. That's where we need to stand up. But even now, we see people fighting each other or fighting the government, and we're still not standing up. We're still pointing fingers like, oh yeah, but what he's doing is racism. Oh, what he's doing is sexism. Oh, fuck that. That's not helping anyone. So why are these people racist? Now, if we look at Black Lives Matter, yeah, these are socialists. These are politically motivated bastards who want to destroy the society they live in. Recognizing that makes it a lot easier to deal with them. It doesn't matter whether you agree or not. It's whether you recognize what's going on. Because let's be honest, there isn't a person I know who said, well, yeah, police brutality, yeah, that's somewhat an issue. But hey, you know what? If they shoot a black guy, it's okay by me. I've not heard that sentence once. And before people start taking it out of context, obviously I don't think that's a good idea either. But I have a problem with Black Lives Matter because they keep pushing forward victims that aren't victims. Did I hear the evidence coming out of the intersectional nonsense emerge in the mainstream at the time of Occupy Wall Street? Did you hear the evidence coming out at the intersectional nonsense? I'm not really sure if I know what you mean, John, but I do know that when Occupy Wall Street started, there are lots of stories that claim that this is the period of time when the intersectional and the identity politic thing got pushed, so that people stopped focusing on the bankers and started focusing on perceived inequalities within society. I'm not sure if that's what you meant. Oh, by the way, guys, if you want to join, I am talking whilst on the Discord channel in one of the speech channels. So if you are on Discord and you are on our group, then by all means, feel free to join in. Maybe you want something to say. But the funny thing is, in our current day, we are still being pushed together in a divide and conquer sort of way. Oh no, you can't be in favor of that because that means you must be against that. You can't be in favor of that because you must be against that. Oh, you can't be in favor of gay marriage because if you're in favor of gay marriage, you must be against yada yada blah blah blah. No, you can't be against transgender equality because if you're against transgender equality, you're against transgender people. They will find new ways time and again to make it seem that there is actually something going on, even though there isn't. It is rather scary to me, and it is worrying. By the way, guys, if I'm not responding fast to the chat in the stream, I've noticed that my OBS is sending out chats faster than I seem to receive them. So I'm not really sure how that is working. But yeah, it seems that after John mentioned me, he already sent 2 other messages, and I don't seem to be able to see them. Now the last message the OBS is showing me, which is far too small, I can't read it, shows that he ended with a smiley face. But I haven't seen that one come around yet. So that's funny. So if I'm not responsive to the chat, bear with me because I have no idea what's going on. Then again, you could blame me for that. I have to admit, it might also be YouTube. I'm sorry. YouTube does some silly things from time to time. It's double though. I mean, okay, so we have a society where they are still pushing us to break up, to stand away from one another, to think in us versus them. Why do you think they're doing that? Well, they're doing that because it's the best way to make sure that we won't stand together. And funny enough, that's what we need to do. It's almost as if, well, it's divide and conquer. I think it's Machiavellian. I can't remember it's almost, it's exactly what you said, John. Okay, fair enough. It's Machiavellian, and it is rather upsetting to see how people are blind to it. I've had spoken with people who are basically doing the same sort of job as I'm doing, that have basically said, well, yeah, you know what, if you can prove to me that X, Y, or Z is indeed being used in such a manner, I will not believe you because I don't want to believe it. Oh, okay, fair enough. That's fine, but that's also a problem because reality is not what we want to believe it to be. Reality is what it is. For example, in the Netherlands, we've been told time and time again how sorry, how we have a huge problem with corona. 13,000 people in the Netherlands died because of corona. And now, man, it's terrible. It's way more than we normally have. And if we then divide and rule, not divide and conquer. Well, yeah, fair point, John. Divide and rule, okay. But back to the death numbers of corona. Now, in the Netherlands, the last year, in 2020, we had a grand total of 168,000 deaths. 168,000 deaths, yeah. Which is an overall number of 0.94%. You can forget it, don't worry. And it's higher than it has been in the last 5 years. Because the last 5 years we had lower death numbers than we had last year. Therefore, corona. Okay, well, sure, why not? But there have been 13,000 corona deaths. But there have been more than 17,000 deaths than the year before. Because last year we had 168, but the year before that we had 151 deaths. 151,000 deaths. So if you're going to black and white say, oh look, it's 168, therefore corona is real. Okay, then how come when it was 151 and then we add 13, I do not come close to 168. So where does that difference come from? Yeah, but now you're just looking for excuses. No, wait a second. You were the one talking how corona was so deadly that it increased our death rate. The funny thing is, if we take the last 10 years, last year is pretty much on the high average death count in the last 10 years. But if we take the last 20 years, we are below average. Still, 2021 till 2010, nearly every year in that period had more deaths than we had last year. But that's not what people want you to realize. They want you to feel afraid. They want to tell you, look how terrible it is. And yeah, John, I'm willing to believe you that last year were the worst figures since 1918. But the question is, do we have a lot more people than we had in 1918? What's the average age of people dying compared to 1918? I mean, it's how they use certain information. And if you prove them to be wrong in this, they simply ignore you because it doesn't fit the narrative they choose to believe. And there lies our problem. It's not whether you're right or wrong. They simply won't acknowledge you. It's not whether people from Black Lives Matter are right or wrong. We simply choose to not acknowledge them. But we should acknowledge them on the things that they are correct on. Of course, we shouldn't agree with them when they're talking, tripe, let's say nicely, tripe, yeah? So it's not that we should agree with them whenever they say something, but when they're correct, we need to identify that they too may have a point. Their point may not be as much as they hope it to be, but I'm pretty sure none of us are in favor of people being randomly killed by the police. Just like none of us are in favor of people randomly dying for something that, theoretically speaking, could be prevented. But we're not allowed to recognize when this is the case. We're being polarized. We're doing it. We're playing along with it. It's also what we as a society do and how we push certain narratives. But it's also what is being done to us. Because let's be honest, if the media keeps telling you that 2 plus 2 is 5, and we know damn well it's 4, we're going to fight back and we're going to say, no, it's not 5, it's 4. And then they come with other examples, and those examples seem as wrong as that one. For example, yeah, but 2 plus 3 is 5. No, 2 plus 2 is 4. Well, wait a second. But 2 plus 3 is indeed 5. So that few times that they are actually speaking truth, we should accept that, you know what, on this you're correct. That doesn't mean that they're correct on 2 plus 2 is 5. And that doesn't mean that I'm wrong because I say 2 plus 2 is 4. Accepting that the other side may have a point as well doesn't automatically mean I don't have a point. Nor does it mean we should stand against one another. I read a recent analysis that said 20 deaths per capita were surpassed in 2006. Well, if we look in the Netherlands, yeah, easily. Not just in 2006. I think 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009. I'm not sure about 2010, but all of these numbers were higher. But the thing is, if we look at the death numbers of the last year, now obviously I'm not talking about America, because in America stuff happened that is beyond the pale. I mean, you have a virulent disease that is especially deadly to the very old. And then you put patients of this virulent disease in old folk homes and care homes. And then you're surprised that a lot of people in these homes die of your virulent disease. I'm sorry. If you're that kind of American, you are stupid. So yes, Cuomo is an idiot. Yes, Whitmer is an idiot. And even more so, to me, they are criminally responsible. But that doesn't mean the virus is the biggest problem. If we look at the Netherlands, most of the people that died from corona are 70 or older. Under 65, I mean, the Netherlands had 13,000, 14,000 dead. Under 65, the Netherlands had less than 500 deaths. Okay. Now, obviously, we want to protect grandma and grandpa. Sure we do. But then again, grandma and grandpa have always been at risk of dying of virulent diseases. There's nothing new with corona. Is it deadly? Yeah, sure, like hell it is. But it's not more deadly than all the other things that are deadly. I mean, it's probably a clue, but people do still die. And yes, Michael Keller, the care home disasters happened in most of the Western world countries too. Thank God the Netherlands were somehow spared this stupidity. I mean, we had 2 hospitals close in the last year. Our society is on lockdown to relieve the strain from our hospitals and our intensive care units. And at the same time, we have closed 2 hospitals. I'm sorry, but if our healthcare is so much under strain, why the hell are we closing hospitals? And the COOF is a solution to the pensions time bomb. No, because unfortunately, John, yes, most people died from the COOF were indeed of the age of old pensioners. Not enough of them died. It's not Ebola, not close. I mean, it's about as deadly as a medium flu. Strong flus are more deadly than what we've seen so far with corona. But then again, the narrative goes one way, and the media keeps pushing it. Politicians play along with it. The story gets told, and people start believing it. And then all of a sudden, people start defending the lie that they have been told. And it's easier to lie to people than to prove to them that they've been lied to, especially once they decided to believe the lie. So the Black Lives Matter example is beautiful. If we look in America, there are plenty of black people that absolutely agree that police brutality is a problem, but they still don't believe the Black Lives Matter nonsense because they recognize that this is not just a black issue. But then there are the Black Lives supporters that will absolutely ignore anything that proves to them how wrong they are. It's not to say that they're completely wrong, because there are 1 or 2 points when they're actually right. But on average, they're full of shit. This is true for the corona measures. This is true for Black Lives Matter. This is true for, oh man, schooling is an issue. Oh, schooling is important. Schooling is important. Oh, schooling is so important. But we can't let kids go to school now because, well, we're in a pandemic. It can't all be true. Either it is important or it is not. Either we take some risk with our life or we stop living. Michael Keller, Switzerland. 2 hospitals closed. They built new buildings and closed the old ones. Ah, well, yeah, that's also closing them, but that's not really closing them. You could say it's moving them around. All military hospitals were closed. Now that is interesting, because if there is such a high rate of pressure on healthcare, you'd say military hospitals were a good solution. In the Netherlands, we had a hospital ship. We didn't use it. One of our major national, venues where concert would happen, had been transformed into a makeshift hospital. They had the grand total of 0 patients. And then they closed it again. But the hospital ship and the closed emergency hospital were 2 things that we added to the mix and not use. But there are 2 hospitals that were hospitals for more than 20 years that got closed and nothing replaced them. Okay. And well, indeed, Patricius, you want to go to go outside, go back to something that seems at least a normal thing, a normal way of life. Your favorite Asperg is back. I'm not quite sure what you mean with that, Patricius. Do you mean you're an Asperger? That's possible. I don't mind. I don't know what Asperger means. Anyway, so we are constantly being... That's a bold claim. But that's the issue that we constantly have to address. We constantly have to focus and not just look at the other, but also look at ourselves. Okay, I am against Black Lives Matter. Why am I against Black Lives Matter? Well, I'm against them because of the lies they push. But there are examples where victims are indeed victims of police brutality. Am I also against them? Well, no, obviously, if they're victims of true police brutality, and no, it's not a true Scotsman's fallacy, but if they are victims of police brutality whilst being innocent and complying with the police, and they happen to be black, then yes, I will support anyone who will say that this is an issue. Funny enough, you should do the same when the victim is white, and all the other things apply. But if the victim is white and he as well fought back and yada yada, then it's not police brutality. It's logical, because I'm sorry, you shouldn't fight back to the police, whether you agree with them or not. Oh, okay. Well, Patricius, you're always welcome to argue or discuss, mate. We have a tendency of doing that a lot on this channel, right, John? It belongs to us. It should belong to us. We shouldn't just agree with each other just to be compliant. You can have an opinion. If it's not my opinion, we can try to argue and maybe we can convince each other and maybe we cannot. So what? The university is so bad, your co-students are taking a hiatus and start doing other stuff. Hell it is shit to study like this. You get all the negative things from online courses. Well, it's kind of funny that you say this, Patricius. In the Netherlands, basically the Minister of Schooling, it's called different, I'm sorry, has already said that we are to expect that the vast majority of students will have failed this school year. But yeah, no, it's happening. So maybe we might look at a way of, passing them anyway, even though they failed. And yeah, there is that. And none of the real campus uni positivity. Please clap. Yes, Sir Biden. And yes, BLM is a feminist organization, but the issue is misandry in society, and which goes directly against the feminist agenda. So, of course, BLM ignores evidence of the real problem. But this is true for nearly all of these controlled oppositions. And to me, Black Lives Matter is controlled opposition. And that's why the media has so much time for Black Lives Matter, because it's controlled opposition. Funny enough, this is the same reason why no one talks about the Yellow Vest protests, because they are not controlled opposition. People actually might hear what these people think, and that becomes a problem, because, hey, you're not supposed to make sense. This is the same in America. Antifa is controlled opposition. The Proud Boys are not. So the Proud Boys are being demonized and they're not allowed to speak, because once you allow them to speak, people might notice that they are not unreasonable or unfair. And that's something we don't want you to realize, because 2 + 2 = 5. And yeah, sometimes 2 + 3 = 5. So yeah, sometimes we are correct, but you have to believe us. Now, the polarization happening in our societies, in the Western world mostly, are scary. And we need to stand up in any way we can, but we have to try not to stand up with violence. And this is the problem we are having in our society, because our young men, and this is not a new theory, this is an old theory, young men tend to, when society becomes a mess, stand up and fight back. Now, some people, I don't know who, I don't know why, have been trying to direct the anger of these young people. This is what we see in Antifa, this is what we see in Black Lives Matter. This is not just in America, we see this all over the Western world. But now, young guys are standing up whilst not being directed. We see this in the riots in Europe. In a lot of European cities, young people are rioting. Now, most of these young people are of non-native heritage, but they're still rioting for the exact same reason why other people who are of native heritage are also rioting. And we can say, well, it's because they're foreigners and they're not typically of that country, therefore they're rioting. But that's not true. They're rioting because they notice that their society is crashing under them and they have no other way to deal with it. Now, unfortunately, they take it out on the ones they can, so they take it out on the people closest to them. They're not going to riot in a police station, they're going to riot in a shopping mall. And then they're going to steal some stuff because, yeah, well, we came to do something, but we forgot what it was, so we might as well get paid. It's stupid, I know, but that's how it happens. And we need to get these youth involved as well. We need to recognize that they do have a point, even though the rioting is not acceptable. And if we don't do this on time, if we don't find a way to limit this behavior, well, if we don't, then we will fall down and we will need to stand up fighting. Because this is how civil wars start. And this is the scary part. I don't want a civil war. I'm pretty sure none of us want a civil war. But at the same time, we are being pushed into one. I'm pretty sure that there are many people out there who will say, yeah, but Black Lives Matter isn't that bad an organization. Yeah, you know, maybe you're right. I seem to think different based on what I recognize, based on what I see. But, as I said earlier, once or twice, they too have a just point. I understand why people are afraid of COVID. They too have a just point. But we also need to recognize that there's more to it. Okay, let me see. So we need to basically pull in the young revolutionary spirit of the youth. You know, no, I don't think we should reel in the revolutionary spirit of the youth. What we need to do is recognize why it's coming out. What we need to do is recognize why our youth has a how do you call it, a need to identify this problem in the way they do and feel that this is the only solution they have. Sounds like the idea of, no, because it's not about nationalism or anything like that. The problem that we have at this point in time is that we are telling our people that they can't do anything. We are taking away their rights to live, their rights to survive, their rights to prosper. And that's the main problem. Let me see. I actually think many of those people are fundamentally opposed to us. Patricius, listen, Patricius, if you want, you can come on Discord and you can join in with me. We can talk about this. Because I'm pretty sure that there are kids like you are mentioning. But I'm equally as sure that there are kids out there that are being drawn along with it. And the only reason they are being drawn along with it is because they already have a lot of, how do you call it, stress based on the fact that our society is crumbling around them and there is no real place for them. Not just for them, for anyone. But these kids still live here. This is what happened with the how do you call it, Arab Spring. I mentioned this earlier. Society was crumbling around them, so the people stood up and the youth fought back. And indeed, Paige, it's the youth have no purpose or outlet. And people should always have a purpose, because if you do not grant people the option to find purpose, they will find one, but it will not be in favor of society. See, there are plenty of foreigners in Europe that are misbehaving. I'm not going to deny that this is the case. But at the same time, we need to recognize there are plenty of foreigners in Europe that are behaving, that do want to be part of our society. But we're basically making it impossible. And I mean, I can use other examples. For example, if we look in Great Britain, the whole, how do you call that thing? Bloody hell, now I can't find the words again. It's about those rapes, the child grooming things. Thank you, child grooming things in the British country of England, and well, I think it was mostly England, wasn't it? Didn't really happen much in Scotland and Wales. Can't be sure, but the tendency of the political correct people to ignore this caused it to go out of proportions. It became way too big. And now we have politicians saying, well, you can't talk about this because it is polarizing society. But the fact that we're not talking about it is what's causing the polarization, and people stand up and start fighting back. The same is true for what we are seeing now. The youth are standing up and fighting back. Now, they're fighting the wrong people because they're fighting shop owners, but the violence comes from an oppressive society, or at least an oppressive government. Okay, let me read up again. Actually, not yet. I am usually up for a talk and I got a better micro now, but I sadly have to study for an exam. Also, the Arab Spring was a color revolution. The thing is, with foreign groups, they actually accept the radicals and set up parallel structures. I am not talking about the radicals. It is that the moderates are tolerating and accepting the radicals, and they will vote for the radicals largely. That is what they do. And well, I mean, you're talking about two different things here, Patricius, and I kind of agree with you because that's what we are seeing, but that's not really the issue that is causing the current stream of violence. It's definitely part of the reasons why our societies are falling and failing, but it's at the same time, yeah, the Arab Spring was a color revolution. I'm not quite sure what you mean with that. Doesn't make much sense, but then again, they always, I mean, the revolution not too long ago in Ukraine was called the Orange Revolution. I'm not quite sure why they do that. So yeah, there is that. The thing, however, is if we only focus on what's on the top, we're never going to be able to respond. Because the things that are on top are there because they are placed there. They're placed there to put people against other people. Okay, Patricius, youth actually in most of history have no power, which is true. But the problem isn't whether they had power or not. The problem is whether they had a perspective, whether they had a view on a future. That's not about power, that's about survival. And now, a lot of people don't have a view on a future. Now, obviously, that's not the same as I try to invade a country and now I want to make that country mine. It's more like, I want to live a normal life. I want to be part of this community, and I'm no longer able to do that. And now more people are losing faith in their governments. Indeed, Page. And whilst losing faith in their government, in their society, and the ability for them to thrive, not just them personally, but their society as a whole, they feel that they have no other way to go than to fight back. Color revolutions are staged, etc., for certain actors to gain hours. To gain hours. I don't know what you mean with that. I just like the term. Well, have a good stream. Well, I'm sorry if you're already leaving, Patricius, but then again, you did say that you have to cram up for an exam, so I wish you good luck with that. And yes, it is very often that people are being pushed into a certain narrative. For example, this is what happened with Antifa and Black Lives Matter in the last few years in America. Unfortunately, the people pushing these things always lose control. They may have a little semblance of control of small groups, but they do not have control of society at large. And people will turn against the things that they will recognize as a problem. This is, for example, if we look in America again, that groups like, I named them earlier, the Proud Boys, thank you. Groups like the Proud Boys stand up because people need to push their unhappiness, our discontent somewhere. And in the beginning, people tend to go along with what they are being told is the cause. But then people start realizing it. Hell, not everyone, but more people start realizing that, yeah, you know what, we're pushing in one direction, but that direction isn't the direction we should be pushing in. And then people start genuinely standing up. Then you get genuine grassroots movements, not the grassroots movements that are basically politicized. Then you get grassroots movement again, like the Proud Boys, who do not have an affiliation with any politician. I mean, there are people who say, well, but they're in favor of Trump. No, they're in favor of some of the things Trump does. And they're also not in favor of some of the things Trump does, because it's not about Trump. It's not about any political movement. It's about what they feel is needed to make a stable society. A stable society they can flourish in, they can grow in, and they can see other people flourish and grow in. As soon as you have a revolutionary group that only looks at themselves, you know that this is a revolution for power. But as soon as you have groups of people saying, okay, we need to change this because this is what everyone needs, the goal is not power. The goal is societal change. And thank you for the compliment, Paige. I do have to admit that I'm kind of at the point in time where I think I'm repeating myself, though. So if anyone wants to join, let me know. I mean, I am still on Discord, so people can jump in. And if not, I may as well call it for now. I mean, I've been ranting for about an hour. And I'm hoping that what people take out of this is try not to only look at your own side. Oh, well, this is what we believe, therefore we must be right. But try to also recognize that the other side may have some decent points as well. That doesn't mean you have to accept all the nonsense, but try to pick out the things that you say, okay, you know what? Yeah, Black Lives Matter, police violence can be a problem. And when it is, it surely is. But at the same time, Black Lives Matter, you can't claim that our society is corrupt and blah, 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 whilst at the same time burning stuff down and politicians buying you off. It's always a trade-off. We have to be honest with each other. Donald Trump wasn't the best president of America. I don't think anyone will see him as the best. He was a good one. I have to admit that. And Biden has already done more harm to the American system than Trump did. Though I have to admit that during the corona crisis, I think Trump was also a problem. He accepted things from their political adversaries that he never should have accepted. He crashed the economy. Well, the economy hasn't crashed yet. It will, though, because they allowed so much printing of money that the economy of America is pretty close to a depression, if not already heading towards one right now. But instead of focusing on all the things that go wrong, instead of focusing on all the problems we have, try to recognize the positive things we still have. There are more people agreeing with each other than that are not agreeing with each other. It's the things that they do not agree upon that cause them to fight each other. And that is the one thing that we should fear. That's the one thing that doesn't make sense. If we disagree with each other, let's talk about it. Criticism, as always, is more than welcome. We should be open to be criticized. But at the same time, where people are correct, we also need to say, you know what, on that point, it's not my point, but on that point, you're correct. That doesn't mean all the other points you make are correct. That doesn't mean all the other points I make are invalid. But on that one, we both agree. And from there, we can move on. I thought that was absolute proof. If you claim corruption and prove it by getting politicians to pay your bill after you burn down Dunkin'. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, how bizarre is it that we now have a president and a vice president in office in America that bailed out rioters that destroyed government buildings? Now, I'm not going to say Kamala and Biden are illegitimate. I'm not going to say that there is ample reason to impeach them. But I am going to say that it's an interesting thing, and we should definitely watch out for it, because I am curious how this will, how do you call it? Turn out? Let's say turn out. Well, I had given open invitations for people to join me on the Discord server, and no one has. And I've been busy for a nice hour. I really like to thank you all for joining me, and I hope you will join me next week when there will be something interesting to talk about. Or maybe we'll talk about this again. Who knows? I'm always up for something new, though. So if you have a topic that you want to do, I think John wanted to do something, so maybe we'll do that next week. And for now, I'd like